Hasan, Piker, and Vaush, two of the most prominent progressive personalities on the internet, have been banned from Twitch for using racial slurs. That's literally it. Vaush used a racial and gender slur along with a racial slur, and thus they were both banned. Now, banned doesn't mean a whole lot on Twitch. It's weird. It typically means suspended. However, it looks like Vaush may be indefinitely banned. We'll see. As for Hasan, he's received his third ban. They'll probably unban him. We'll see. But this is not the same as a mistake or dancing on the line. This is quite literally Hasan, Piker, and Vaush overtly using racial slurs. I do not agree in principle with these personalities being banned. However, Vaush explained to us that private companies, if they don't want you on the platform, you got to follow the rules. Maybe you should follow the rules. Hasan himself, in a video not even that long ago, he talks about how all these conservatives, they want to make an echo chamber, but they want to own the libs, so they want to be on Twitter and they want to be on these platforms. Maybe they shouldn't be violating the rules. Okay, in principle, I believe it is wrong that Hasan and Vaush have been banned from Twitch. They should be allowed to be on these platforms and engaging in public discourse the same as anybody else. I do believe there is a line in which we do ban content and that censorship is not inherently evil. What do I mean by that? Ian Crossland, you may have seen him on Timcast IRL. He's one of the co-hosts, and he is a co-founder of Minds.com. That is the social media platform Minds. He actually had to do for quite a long time content review. Why? People post graphic murder and child abuse, and this stuff is illegal, like overtly illegal content. And I don't mean like speech and expression. I mean videos of adults doing things to kids, like really messed up stuff. And that's what censors are there to do. So we can respect that. I can respect that. I could say, you know what? It's a good thing that there are people reviewing content to make sure criminals aren't doing criminal things. But you see, the issue is when it comes to politics, when it comes to opinion, when it comes to political opinion, and you're not overtly committing a crime, or you're not even targeting someone specifically or advocating for violence against someone, then you should be allowed to say things that are offensive or nasty. And that means, in my opinion, you should be allowed to say racial slurs. I don't like it. I won't like you for using them, but you have a right to express yourself in that way. And that being said, when these crackpot weirdo racists come out and say these awful racist things, my response is, thank you. Now I know not to associate with you, not to support you, and generally to avoid you. Someone could come out and have a bunch of great politics, but if it turns out to me that this person is spewing racial slurs and is generally bigoted, then I'm going to say, I don't believe I would like to work with you. I do not agree with those ideas, and those take precedent over many other ideas. I do not believe the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Just because you may believe in smaller government, but then the reason you do is because you want the right to discriminate or oppress people, I'm going to be like, that's not smaller government. That's just you wanting power. And you don't like the government as the power, and you want the power. So no, not a fan of that. When it comes to Hasan, he went on a stream and he basically said he was going to use the word cracker, and it is a racial slur. Now, my understanding is that, at least on YouTube, or I guess the rule is like, don't call people a slur, but you can say the slur, I guess. I do not personally believe cracker is all that offensive to anyone. However, it's the left that actually got offended by this. And I have to say, I'm willing to bet it was the left that actually reported Hasan. Among his own fans, they were saying, this is an offensive slur, don't use it. Vaush apparently stepped up after the fact and then used the word Karen as well. Now, Karen is also a racial gender slur. It's a specific slur referencing a white woman. And he got indefinitely banned for that. And I want to talk about why Hasan and Vaush are wrong completely in their philosophy and their ideology, and this exemplifies it. And I want to say, on principle, they should not be banned. However, on their principles, they should be banned and never be allowed back on the platform, period. So let me break that down real quick. The way I see it, I appreciate that they're allowed to voice their opinions. I think a lot of people have taken clips from Vaush and Hasan out of context. There was one recently where people were like, Hasan is supporting Assange's extradition, and it was an out of context clip. I don't play that game. The full clip was him saying, yeah, I don't think Assange should be imprisoned forever and, et cetera, but man, his stands are crazy. And I'm like, that's a fine opinion. If you want to claim that Hasan isn't supporting Assange, show me the full clip. Don't edit it. Recently some people that I know, good friends, were like, oh man, I've seen these clips of Dave Rubin. They're kind of embarrassing. And I'm like, let me guess. Some guy on Twitter posted a clip. You saw it and you believed it. And they were like, yeah, Dave was saying something about, this, that, or otherwise. And I was like, dude, for all you know, be it Vaush, Hasan, Rubin, me, Crowder, anybody, we could say something like, I went to an ice cream shop and there was a man there who loudly proclaimed, I don't like vanilla ice cream. And I was shocked. Vanilla, that's like the flavor. And then what they do on the internet is they take that quote and attribute it to you. They do this stuff all the time. Or there would be a circumstance where it's like, a guy told me, he said, if we see the ice cream truck out back, this store is not going to have vanilla ice cream. And then what they do is they take that clip where the guy says, this store is not going to have vanilla ice cream, and say he made a prediction that wasn't true. What an idiot. When in reality, he was saying, if indicator applies, if indicator equals yes, then. Simple if then statement. So I'm not playing these stupid games. Now, look, I like that they're on here expressing their opinions. I like being able to argue with them. I am not a fan of Hasan because I think he's an establishment player. Vaush is a bit of an establishment player, but he still is a little anti-establishment in many areas, and he was willing to concede a lot of points the left typically isn't. We've had him on the show a couple times. I can respect that. However, among both of their opinions, they believe these companies should have the right to enforce these TOS, and if they violate them, they should be banned. So what I tweeted in response to Vaush getting banned was, look, he knows they ban you for racial slurs. He outright says these are racial slurs and he's going to use them. And then he got banned and he's not crying about it. So I said, there's nothing wrong here. And what I mean by that is both on the part of Vaush, he's not being hypocritical. He straight up said, yeah, they ban it. I'm going to use it. I'm going to own it and be a Chad. That's what he said. And then he got banned and he was like, oh, there you go. Okay. If you accept the consequences that you advocate for, that's not hypocrisy. I just think it's a bad policy. It's a bad policy to advocate for. Hasan, on the other hand, has argued conservatives should just be following the rules. Well, I'll say the same to you, Hasan. You can't ask for special treatment. I, however, don't think anyone should be banned for using racial slurs. I think we should point them out, and society should say, we don't like that you do that, and people should make that choice. Dexterra reports Twitch banned the popular streamer just after 8:17 p.m. on Monday. He was watching clips on stream for more than 40,000 viewers before ending the broadcast. He later came out and said that the ban was exactly for what you think it is, anti-white racism for using the term cracker. Okay, let me tell you something. It doesn't matter if you don't care for the concept of anti-white racism. What matters is that big monolithic corporations don't care about you and will ban you when you advocate for this stuff. We also have this one from HITC or HITC. Vaush banned from Twitch indefinitely after Hasan Piker suspension. So he basically came out and said he was going to say, that he believed cracker and Ken were both slurs. He was going to own it and he was going to use that. I have tremendous respect for that. I think I completely disagree with it. I don't mind so much the idea of the word Karen because that's more of a stereotypical statement than it is like a slur against a race. Cracker is a slur against a race. So I'm not a fan of that. I do not appreciate people using them, but I'm not going to cry about it. I mean, look, Vaush is a white dude saying it, whatever, man. If people want to say stuff, I'm not gonna sit here and say I agree with the guy or like that he does this. No, I actually think it's kind of gross. But at least he owns it. He said, update, I was banned after this stream ended, LMAO. Oh, well, he accepts it. I can respect that. Here's the problem, ultimately, across the board with this policy, with these ideas, the ideology of people like Hasan and people like Vaush saying massive multinational private corporations can privatize the commons and then ban people from them. Sorry, I'm actually, when it comes to economic policy and, when it comes to human rights, I'm on the left. Unlike Hasan and Vaush, which is really quite hilarious. And now all of their stands are going to flip out and be like, how dare you say that? Oh, I'll make it really simple. I believe the commons should not be privatized. I believe the commons should be held by the people. I believe that if a private company comes in and buys up the space in which people engage in discourse, we have a very serious problem. And then it is the role of the community to say no to the privatization of the public commons. So to put it simply, when Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, etc. take over the space by which we communicate with each other and advocate for policy and our political opinions, we have a problem of far-right authoritarianism. as someone who would be on the libertarian left, and even heck, the authoritarian left, you should be saying, no, the people have the right. Now, unfortunately for the authoritarian left, they would then come out, or I should say, unfortunately for the libertarian left, the authoritarian left would then come out and be like, the people in the party should control it and we'll shut out any dissent. So it's effectively the same thing when it comes to the censorship. But if you were truly on the libertarian spectrum and leaning left, you would say the commons must be protected by the community. That is to say, members of the public have a right to be on Twitter. Yes, I believe they have a right to be on Twitter because Twitter took over the water cooler. Twitter took over the church. Twitter took over the town square. We are no longer engaging in public debate in these places for the most part, and thus we need to reconcile that. Now, the ANCAPs and libertarian types, they might be saying, no, a private business can do it at once and they can ban you if they want to. Well, you know what? I'm not of that persuasion. So if you want to come out and claim to be a leftist, but support multinational billion-dollar corporations shutting down public discourse, okay, I'm sorry. That's not even authoritarian left. You're supporting corporations. And now look what they're doing. You see, this is what's really fascinating to me. Hasan got banned for using racial slurs against white people. And I can only say, I told you so. Now, Vaush, I think, for the most part, he owned up to it. He said it. He knows all this stuff. I can't really complain about that. A guy being like, yes, they should ban racial slurs. Yes, he says he'll use them, and then he gets banned and says LMAO. Okay, that's fine. It'd be like me saying that they should sell peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, and you know what? If you go to the store, you should get one. And now I have one. It's like that's what you wanted to happen. I can't complain about hypocrisy there. I just think it's a bad idea. Now I'm going to break down exactly why beyond just my personal opinions and show you this. This is incredible, major breaking news, and it's very, very important. John Stossel, he's incredible. He's a great journalist. He said, here's where the facts about me lie. Facebook bizarrely claims its fact checks are opinion. Hands down. Look, when Tucker Carlson and Rachel Maddow get sued, they say they're opinion speakers, and that's true. What then happens is that people on the right say, Rachel Maddow admits that she's not saying facts. And then the people on the left say, Tucker Carlson admits he's not saying facts. Let me explain. Statement of fact as a legal term is something very specific. If Tucker Carlson comes out and says the people who, on January 6th who were pushing and fighting were feds, that's an opinion statement. It sounds like he's saying there's a fact. He's not calling it. No, he's saying that would be an opinion statement. Now, people on the left try to exploit that and say, aha, that's not a fact. If he said, so-and-so who was seen down there, according to these documents, is definitively proven to be, there is a very fine line between what constitutes an opinion and what constitutes a fact. Calling someone a narc, a fed, or a Nazi are opinions. That's true. Now, you can try and argue, but they're going to be like, a fed, I was just saying the dude was a snitch and like an informant. Like I wasn't saying he was literally working for the federal government. You know what I mean? Now, there's a fine line. It's hard to know where it is, but typically a court will try and be reasonable in this matter. This is where it gets really important. Facebook has stated in defense to a lawsuit filed by John Stossel. They say, he writes, Facebook has responded to my lawsuit in court. Amazingly, their lawyers now claim that Facebook's fact checks are merely opinion and therefore immune from defamation. Wait, Facebook's fact checks are just opinion? I thought fact checks are statements of fact. That's how Facebook portrays them on its website. Each time a fact checker rates a piece of content as false, Facebook significantly reduces the content's distribution. We apply a warning label that links to the fact checker's article disproving that claim. Here's where it gets good. I have long advocated for this, and John Stossel is the man of principle who stepped up to the plate, slammed that pitch straight out of left field. Boom, home run. Bringing in the grand slam to win the game. Okay, maybe not yet. But here's what I stated. When you post something to Facebook, let's say you write an article, and Facebook says false, misleading, or whatever, partly false, Facebook has made a statement of fact, not an opinion. You see, what happens is these fact checkers who are given, carte blanche effectively to diminish, reduce, harm, or otherwise get taken down your content, it is Facebook who applies that label to it. And John Stossel argued that. Facebook tried to claim in court, you can't sue us because Section 230 protects us from what other people do. And John Stossel, brilliantly, and as I have advocated for now, since Facebook started this policy, I'm glad John's doing this. I believe it's independent of anything I've said, to be fair, but I've been saying we need to do this for a long time. When a fact checker says this is fake news, it is Facebook as a company. They use the pronoun we to apply a label. That means Facebook made a statement based off something they read. Reading something and making a statement is not a justification for you making a false statement of fact. So to go back to Hasan and Vaush, when they say they should be allowed to do these things, they are wrong, they are opinionated, they are political, and they will ban you in 2 seconds. Now, again, Vaush seems totally cool with it. He agrees with it. So there you go. Like, I got nothing to complain about other than saying he's wrong. Hasan, however, I believe is hypocritical because he's like, just don't break the rules. I broke the rules and now they're mad at me. This is BS, anti-white racism or whatever. Don't say it. Don't support it. You can't have it both ways. You can't expect the system to be like, don't say racial slurs. Except you, Hasan, you can say whatever racial slur you want. In this capacity, we can see the true fallacy of this idea that these companies have the ability to effectively police content. On Twitter, James O'Keefe is suing because when he got banned, Twitter said that he was banned. They released, I believe they released a statement. And I'll also point out language too in a second. I believe they released a statement where they said that he was operating multiple accounts or something. And James says he wasn't. That's insane. And thus, that's defamation. You'll notice in many of my videos, I am very careful about how I describe things because accuracy is important. That's why I say I believe or apparently or allegedly or reportedly. So what Facebook could simply do is they could put a label on John Stossel's content that says, according to X, this is misleading. Instead, they say, we applied a label that said, this is misleading. Well, there you go. If I read an article that says Donald Trump did a front flip, and then I come out and say he did, and Trump says I never did, and you have no proof, I can't defend that statement in court by being like, but I read it somewhere else. They'll be like, I don't care where you came up with the idea, whether you read it or otherwise. You made a false statement of fact. Look at the Covington kids. This is the problem of the system. That's how Facebook portrays it on their website. We apply a warning label. He goes on to say, he points out the Tucker Carlson and Rachel Maddow thing. What he points out, and this is really interesting, is that the fact checkers on Facebook, this is where it gets even worse. He says it was Facebook, not a third party, declaring my posts partly false. Facebook's warning was created by Facebook and posted by Facebook in Facebook's voice. Facebook's own website says we apply a warning label. The next thing that needs to happen, my friends, James O'Keefe needs to sue Wikipedia. Why? The Wikipedia article for Project Veritas, or should I say Project Veritas should sue Wikipedia. It says Project Veritas from Wikipedia, the free encyclopedia or something like that. The article then goes on to disparage to a great degree Project Veritas. It includes citations, but those citations are irrelevant. The statements are made, according to the page, by Wikipedia in Wikipedia's voice. Sue them. If they said the following article it was produced by and then list all the users, that would probably be acceptable. This is where it gets interesting. The fact checks on John Stossel's content made up fake quotes. Look at this. He says, I made a video that said California's wildfires were mostly caused by poor government management. Facebook censored that as misleading. They linked to a science feedback post that puts the following sentence in quotation marks as if it were something I said. Quote, forest fires are caused by poor management, not by climate change. But I never said that. In my video, I acknowledge climate change has made things worse. I just argued that government mismanagement was a bigger factor. And that's an opinion piece. How do you say someone's opinion on the facts is wrong? It's an opinion. I mean, you can say someone's got stupid opinions and their opinions are wrong, but you can't say it's factually false. He goes on to mention that when he asked them, they offered no defense. They surprised me by saying that they hadn't even watched my video. The wrong tone. It happened again. Another video he did, they said was partly false. And then later he said that I asked Science Feedback Reviewer what was wrong with my climate crisis video. And he admitted that he and his other fact checkers found no incorrect facts. They simply didn't like my tone. I produced a video and it said GOP electors cast ballots for Trump or something to that effect. Facebook slapped a label on it saying false. You know what? Maybe I should go after Facebook too. Maybe I should talk to John Stossel about this. But this was changed. So well, the issue here is I always advocate for people suing. I don't think I'd have standing, and I'll explain why. The video was labeled false information. And so I go on my Facebook, and this got my page shut down on Facebook, kicked out of the monetization program. They put a label saying it was false. The video literally starts with me saying the GOP electors, I think it was in Arizona, have cast ballots for Donald Trump, but these are not the officially elected slate as far as the Electoral College is concerned. I said it literally in the first 20 seconds as I was explaining. Huge news so what happens in the election is that there's different slates of electors. One gets chosen and their ballots get sent to DC. The GOP electors decided to submit theirs anyway, which is a formality, and it has happened in the past. That's what I thought was relevant. That's the headline. They did. Now, I didn't say they filed official votes to the Electoral College, proof of, etc. When it was labeled false, I contacted the fact checker who told me we did not watch your video at all. And I said, in literally the first 10 or 15 seconds, I say, keep in mind, these people are not the elected slate. These are just Republicans who were the Republican slate who are not going to D.C., and this very well may mean nothing. However, if we go back to the election between Nixon and Kennedy, you can see something similar happened. That's why it's significant. Upon watching that, this fact-checking organization went, oh, okay, that's actually all true information. Nothing that you said was false. And they removed the label. Now, that pisses me off. Why should I have to do extra work when Facebook defames me? The truth be told, there is still an obligation to try and seek remedy. My problem was remedied. And thus, when it came to labeling my content false that I had posted, I would have no standing. But rest assured, when it comes to anything like that, I will be awaiting them to come after me. And I'll tell you this too. So first, let me just wrap this all up by saying this is exactly why the idea that they should just enforce the rules is complete bunk BS, because they're factually wrong, incorrect, biased, and lazy. We started the Truth in Media Foundation. I'm actually really not a fan of the name, to be completely honest. I didn't come up with it. Someone here did, because it's the Tim Foundation, and I'm like, whatever. But there's a group of people involved that are putting it together, and they thought Truth in Media was a good name, and it just so happened it's Tim, and I feel like I'm not a fan of that. I'm really, I got to be honest, not a fan of having a website called Timcast. That was never my plan, but it's what we ended up having to do for a variety of reasons. That being said, it's the brand, we will need to grow beyond that. But we started the Truth in Media Foundation to create it's a nonprofit 501c3, non-political organization with the goal of fact-checking and researching information. This means there will likely be very little overtly political fact-checking. There will just be general news fact-checking. We're going to issue scores. We're going to take a random sampling. I've talked about this for years, and it's funny, too, because I remember a couple of years ago when I said we are doing this, I had people tweet at me, this will never happen. He'll never do this. He'll never. And now here we are. We've officially formed. We just have to wait till the new year for tax reasons. It takes a long time to get things going. We needed a board of directors. I wish it were easy and you could snap your fingers and just make it happen. It's not how it works. What we're going to do is we're going to fact check articles. We're going to have writers. We're not going to play dumb games. We will watch videos. We will pull timestamps. We will say if there is something factually incorrect here, we will specifically label the exact moment they said a thing that was wrong. And if we are approved by Pointer to be a fact checker on Facebook, when we say partly false and you click it, we will say the only thing we take issue with is specifically line 3, at minute 6:20 that said this part is not correct, but the rest is fine. We will be very specific. We will watch all of the videos. We will read all the articles, and we're not going to play framing games. If John Stossel comes out and says, here's my opinion, we'll say nothing, because we don't fact check opinions. If he gets a fact wrong, we'll say this fact is incorrect. But very likely, we will be very conservative when it comes to whether we apply warning labels assuming we get approved. But the other thing we're going to do is we're going to go to all of the big players, as many as we can, major websites. We will take maybe every quarter, every 3 or 4 months, we will take a sampling of 100 of their latest articles. We will review them for journalistic ethics violations and then give them a strike or a pass. If there is a news article from the New York Post that is not labeled opinion, and it has opinion in it, strike. Then we'll create a spreadsheet for the organization, and we will show it and say, we applied a strike to this article because it includes opinion statements, but is not labeled as opinion. I have seen Reuters do things like this. We would strike them. Truth be told, I believe the New York Post would probably receive a 60%. The New York Times would probably receive a 70 or 80%. The AP would probably receive a 70 or 80%. So that means out of 100 articles, 80 of them would be deemed good, solid reporting. Then we would get to the likes of, I'll tell you this, the Daily Beast probably would score 0. And I'm not even exaggerating. Breitbart would probably score 50, 60%. No joke. When it comes to if an article is is correct, true, and ethical, Breitbart probably would score decently high, and Daily Beast would be in the gutter. Huffington Post would be comparable to Breitbart. This is just my personal opinion on where they might fall. I believe InfoWars would actually score a bit better than the Daily Beast, but probably in terms of journalistic ethics, probably not that high. Why? It's not about whether you like an organization. It's about whether or not their articles are straightforward news pieces. Now, if the Daily Beast puts opinion and InfoWars put opinion, we would completely ignore those. We would say these are opinion articles, and as opinion articles, they're allowed to express their opinions as they see fit. Quite literally, I believe there's almost no circumstance, unless the opinion piece was so egregious and out there, we had to be like, yo, literally that never happened. If someone said, my opinion on the great cookie collapse of New York when a giant chocolate chip cookie fell from the sky, I'd be like, okay, that is just outright not true. The opinion statement on a false statement of fact, we would fact check that. But if someone gets some stuff wrong in an opinion piece, we'd probably just be like, they have a warped view of this. But if it's labeled opinion, I'm not super worried about it. However, we'll still be issuing fact checks if someone says something that's outright not true. Like here we have this story from the New York Post from John Stossel. He claims Facebook said X. Statement of fact that they're arguing their fact checks are opinion. We would pull up the documents from the court. If it turned out they never argued that, we would say nowhere in their defense did they say this. But I'm assuming John Stossel is correct in this regard. We're then going to give all of these news organizations a score. We're going to create a browser extension, not too dissimilar from NewsGuard, just more in depth and doing something slightly different. I'm not super concerned about who's financing what, not at all. I don't care if you're a leftist publication. I don't care if you're a communist, if you're a capitalist, if you're an anarchist, if you're a libertarian. That is not relevant to me. And it's not relevant, in my opinion, to whether or not you are producing ethical journalism. I understand NewsGuard's position. They want to know who's funding this stuff. No, I think that's not relevant to whether or not the journalists do good work. We hire people. Does it matter? I don't think it's fair to try and play games like someone's funding this. So that's not relevant to me if someone doesn't disclose who's funding something. I really, really don't think so. What matters to me is, do you repeatedly publish false content, unethical content? Are you maximizing harm? Are you lying? Are you falsely framing things? So this is where it's really interesting. Frame checking is an important thing we're going to be introducing. That would be, we go to the Daily Beast. The Daily Beast will fail every frame check. There's a few articles I saw from the AP and Reuters who would fail frame checking. Frame checking is when you say something like, Ron DeSantis, proposes new civilian military force, is being heavily criticized, called his new Gestapo as a civilian military force, would grant him unprecedented powers, blah, blah, blah. Those are all true. People did criticize DeSantis for forming a Gestapo. It would grant him unprecedented powers, arguably. But, while it is, what does unprecedented mean? There's a difference between a strong opinion and like light news opinion. But let me explain it this way. Florida hasn't had a civilian military force in a long time. The proper framing would be there are many other states that do have civilian military forces, so it's not uncommon in the United States to see such a thing. In fact, Ron DeSantis would be created the 23rd. So, important framing. If you said something like, oh, here's one. A smear piece about me said, Tim Pool has donated to multiple Republicans. See, that's false framing. Why? The full context is Tim Pool has donated to 2 Republicans and 4 Democrats, but 2 is multiple. That's what the Daily Beast does, and they would fail a frame check. Now, it's not going to be easy to catch all of the false framing, but we're going to do our best. This is what we're going to do to deal with this garbage. That being said, I've gone a little bit long on this one, so we'll wrap it up here. Suffice it to say, you reap what you sow. If you advocate for the censorship of slurs, don't get mad when you get banned for using a slur. And I think Vaush gets it. I don't think Hasan does. Next segment's coming up at 4 p.m. over at youtube.com/Timcast. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you all there.